Hi, everybody. Welcome to Market Force Essentials. I'm here with Tony Cooper, our CEO, and I'm Karen Kersey, the head of Guru Development. And we're here to talk to you about what we're finding out in the world with our tools and our information that is useful for supporting ourselves through this crazy situation and helping our clients. So, Tony, on that note, what are you finding to be essential right now?
I love these conversations, Karen. I really appreciate you setting us up and talking about them. It's what we're talking to our clients about every day and helping people be the best leaders they can be the most productive teams they are, and as businesses, being really focused on managing ourselves through this time and also focusing on the opportunities. So the thing I want to talk about today as an essential is what I'll call managing your mood. So we've already talked about things like managing your attention, manage your time, managing your focus on this series so far. But when I talk about mood, what I'm really talking about is your mental, the mental reaction you're having to your circumstances, how you are choosing to see and react to the world, and how that shows up as a mood, as a point of view, as a perspective you have about things. And that's going to dramatically impact what's possible for you. So managing mood is a really big essential as a leader at this time.
Yeah, that sounds really important, like both for me as an individual and then also for teams that I'm leading. So can you say a little bit more about how it ends up impacting and what makes it so important?
Sure. So in methodology, we have a framework called a mood matrix. And so I'm not going to go through it all right now, but I want to talk about two of the moods in there because I think they're the most prevalent at this time. One of them is where a lot of us are winding up, and I want to talk about the second mood as a place that we're trying to get to. And so what we're feeling in this moment is we're feeling impacted, very impacted by the situation, both economically, both socially. Many of us, from a health perspective, it's a lot happening all at once, pushing us to feel like back on our heels. We're managing through a rapidly shifting reality, trying to figure things out, trying to get ahead of it. As business leaders, we want to be the ones who feel like we're leading the change, not on the receiving end of the change. But it can be very overwhelming, and it's easy to feel like a victim, like things are happening to us, like things are falling apart, like we're feeling helpless, like and out of control. And that's going to create a natural reaction of frustration and anger. All of that sits inside of a mood that we call resentment. And in resentment, the mood of resentment, the mental construct that I've made about the world is, it's not right, I don't like it, and it needs to be different. Right? And that is a mood of resentment. It's when we're fighting against things and we have an upset that we're carrying. And it's a feeling that I've got a right or wrong. And so to put that in perspective, I always like to show people, because it's a very justifiable mood to be in, certainly given the circumstances. But where I like to put it for perspective for people is that people complain all the time about the weather. In fact, that's one of those intro conversations we have with people. People complain about the weather. And they somehow expect that how they feel about the weather is going to change the weather. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen the weather change because I complained about it. And all it did was cause misery for me. So I didn't like the weather, but then I got a bad attitude about the weather, and then I had to deal with that attitude. I had to start contending with that sort of dark and stormy thought process that I'm bringing to it. And so resentment has a way of creating more and more of itself, and it's hard to get out of. And so we reinforce the negative experience we're having, and we talk about it, and we perpetuate it, and we spread it. And so the idea of the shift that I was talking about is a shift out of a mood of resentment and into a mood of acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean I have to like it. I'm not saying you have to change your opinion about it. You just have to move from the place of getting that it is the way it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. So a lot of leaders, Karen, we're talking to, what they've been I think what we've been working with them on is helping to distinguish between what can you control and what can't you control.
Right.
And what they find is the list of things they can control is much shorter than the list of things they can't control. But when they shift their focus away from things they can't control to the things they can control, they automatically feel like there's more possibility in the world. And that's what happens when you move from resentment from it to acceptance. And the list of things that we generally can control is pretty short. One of them, our mindset and how we're thinking about the world. And this is the one thing we can genuinely control, which is our attitude about the way things are. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely love the analogy of the complaining about the weather. I think, working with people and even myself, I complain about things
Mm-hmm.
in work or in life, definitely in this situation. So if I want to be making this move and making this shift from complaining a little less, especially if I'm complaining and expecting it's somehow going to change things, that doesn't seem like a winning strategy. So I want to make this shift from resentment to acceptance. How do I do that, Tony?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I want to recommend is that there's a really great book that I read years ago. It's a kind of a personal growth and development book. It was written by the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. It's called The Art of Possibility. And the man's name is Ben Zander, and he wrote it with his wife, Rosalind Zander, who is a life coach. And it was great because it talks a lot about how we interact with the world and how we take greater and greater responsibility. And it was all done mostly through metaphor of music and orchestra, which is really great. Anyway, it's a great book for those who like to read. But I'll tell you what the challenge is. The challenge is legitimately embracing your circumstances and getting that you'd rather things be the way they are not. You'd rather them be how they used to be rather than how they are. And we know that doesn't change the situation. The situation is the situation, and the only way for us to move forward is to accept the circumstances of it all, to accept our upset, to accept that our complaining has no ability to change this situation, and that we're in a change of reality. We're moving from one legitimate reality to a new legitimate reality. And so one of the things I've been talking to, one of the things I love to do is when people have their kid, like have their first kid, their happy couple goes from 2 to 3, especially if I'm talking to them right before it's happening. I'm like, enjoy these moments because your life is over. And I don't mean it, I'm a happy parent. I love my kids. I love my family. I don't mean it like that's a bad thing. I mean, legitimately, you're going to be 3. That's a 50% increase in being within a day and a 500% increase in need. Like, it's crazy what changes overnight. And people who become parents are not the same as who they were prior. Their priorities change, their decisions change, their freedom has changed. They experience highs, experience lows. It's different. And so most people I know would never change it, would never go back. Right? There's something about being a parent that feels really important to people. And yet they are not the same person as they used to be. And I believe our world is going through a change like that. That on the other side of this, we are not going to be the same people. We're not going to do the same things in the same sort of ways, although it's going to look somewhat similar. It's going to both be valid existences. It's just that significant things are going to be different. And it's our jobs as business leader to start to try to figure out what those things are going to be. And we can't start to imagine them if we're holding on to the past. And so what moving from resentment to acceptance means is we have to be willing to let go. And letting go is not an easy thing because we get attached. And we have emotional attachments. We have economic attachments. We have physical and mental attachments to a lot of things. And letting go generally means separation. And there are emotions associated with that. Sometimes they're sadness. So underneath a lot of anger sits sadness. And so we'd have to deal with the loss, like the loss of anything, the loss of a job, the loss of a friend, the loss of a relationship, or anything. Like, it all comes with, you have to let go of the past in order to embrace the future. And part of the grieving process that a lot of people get stuck on is they grieve the loss of what they had, but they fail to grieve the loss of the future that they expected. And so what we really have to do here to create space for this next new emerging reality, what we'll call the new normal whenever it happens, is we have to let go of the future that we expected in order to create space for the one that we really want to create.
Mm. That's really powerful, Tony. I love that. So, like being able to not only acknowledge maybe any of the changes and the things that we're seeing and complaining about, but also what feels like maybe it was taken away or what we were never going to be able to have in that future, and actually being with that and acknowledging it, but then also finding ways to maybe get connected and excited about the possibilities of that new future, or just accepting that there is a new future.
Yeah, yeah. What you said there is really right on, because the possibilities exist on the other side of acceptance.
Okay. Okay.
Until we let go of how things were, we create no space for what they could be.
Okay. Okay. So I've got to create that space.
Mhm.
Create that space. Let those things go. Mourn them the way I need to. Accept that there's a space and a pause, and then.
And this is radical. We're talking about radically accepting that everything, that the way we had it may be different, is a big piece of radical acceptance. So I think this, you look at a lot of the other things we've talked about in this essentials series so far, and they're all pieces to the puzzle. I mean, I really like how you put this together, because it allows us to isolate on an aspect of it, but we have to do all of these things. This is a real moment in time for us to stand and be leaders. It's probably the hardest time to be able to do this, and so yeah, let's keep sharing our ideas about essentials, and we'd love to hear about what it's like for all of our clients as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, this is great, Tony. I look forward to hearing what people are feeling about their mood and managing it. It's like you said, it's a big one. It's a complicated one and it takes some work. So look forward to practicing it. Thank you so much for bringing us this concept and this essential. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye.